When people think of Jimi Hendrix, they think of Seattle, Woodstock, an electric guitar pushed to its absolute limits. Canada rarely enters that story, but it should. Long before Hendrix became one of the most influential musicians of all time, part of his identity was shaped somewhere unexpected. Vancouver's Hogan's Alley. He wasn't just a guitarist. Hendrix changed what an instrument can do. By blending rock, blues, psychedelia, soul, and jazz, he created a sound that felt entirely new. Tracks like Purple Haze and All Along the Watchtower didn't just succeed commercially, they reshaped popular music. But the story of how James Marshall Hendrix became Jimi Hendrix doesn't begin on stage. It begins with family. The story traces back to his grandparents, Bertrand and Nora Hendrix. They immigrated to Vancouver, settling in Hogan's Alley, a thriving Black neighborhood in early 20th century. His grandmother Nora played a particularly important role. She helped establish the African Methodist Episcopal Fountain Chapel, one of the first Black churches in Vancouver, and served as its choir master. This foundation places his lineage within a Canadian community defined by its resilience, migration, and creativity. This influence didn't end with his grandparents. It carried through a family of performers. His aunt, Pearl Hendrix Brown, a celebrated jazz performer in her own right, and Eleanor Collins, a national icon, often called Canada's First Lady of Jazz. Music and performance were already part of the family long before Hendrix picked up a guitar. Even his father was born in Vancouver before later moving to Seattle. So, while Hendrix is often framed as purely American, part of his story is unmistakably Canadian. Hogan's Alley is more than a neighborhood. It existed because Black residents were excluded from other parts of the city. Yet what developed there was vibrant and culturally rich. The area became a hub of music, food, and social life. Jazz and blues flourished. Families built lives. Churches like Fountain Chapel anchored the community. In many ways, it became a space for cultural resistance. Then it was erased. In the 1970s, the city demolished Hogan's Alley to construct the Georgia Viaduct, displacing residents and moving much of its physical presence. The loss becomes more meaningful when we think about Hendrix. Part of his story is tied to a place that no longer fully exists. For Jimi, this place was more than inherited history. He lived it. As a child, he spent time in Vancouver with his grandmother, especially during difficult periods in his family life. For a time, he attended school there, enrolled at Dawson Annex Elementary. Later, in 1961, after being discharged from the military, he returned again. He stayed with his grandmother, performed at local venues, and worked with acts like the Crump Twins. This is the quieter chapter, before the global fame, before the mythology. A young musician developing his sound, performing, and living within a Canadian setting. And even after international success, that connection didn't disappear. In 1968, he performed at the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver and acknowledged his grandmother in the audience. That connection is still visible today if you know where to look. Murals in Vancouver commemorate him near where Hogan's Alley once stood. His cousin, Henry Brown, continues performing Hendrix music, carrying on that legacy forward across generations. When we talk about his innovation, his sound, and his influence, it's worth remembering those things don't emerge in isolation. They were shaped by family and environment. Jimi Hendrix didn't come from a single place. He emerged from a network of histories that cross borders. From a grandmother who helped build a church in Vancouver, From a family with deep roots in Canadian jazz. From a neighborhood that was later erased, but not forgotten. Recognizing these Canadian ties doesn't take anything away from his legacy. It deepens it. Because it reminds us that even the most iconic figures are shaped by stories we don't always see.